In this lesson, we're going to look at how to create a multi-dimensional array or a two-dimensional array. You can think of a two-dimensional array similar to a spreadsheet or a table, if you will, where we have rows and columns of data. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to demonstrate the use of a two-dimensional array by creating a set of grades for 3 students to demonstrate both how to initialize two-dimensional arrays and how to access their elements. So the first thing we're going to do is create a couple of constants to represent the number of rows and columns that we're going to have. So we're going to have 3 rows and 4 columns. So those are our first 2 variables. Now we're going to create, excuse me there. Now we're going to create the two-dimensional array, and we do that by declaring the set of rows and columns. So you see, instead of having one set of brackets for a single dimension array, we're going to have a rows bracket and a columns bracket. And then to declare the data, or to initialize the data, we're going to use initialization lists inside a big initialization list for the whole array. So there's our first row, our first student. And what we're going to do is we're going to use some pretty printing, although it's going to mess us up a little bit. And we're going to have to kind of fudge things here. And I'm keeping my data very simple just to make it easier to follow what we're doing. Let's just erase that. So there's our second row. And here comes our third row. Whoops. The editor always wants to do that with your data. Whoops. There we go. And then we will put one more set. And then we'll semicolon to close off the initialization. And then we have a dangling closing bracket that we'll get rid of right there. So let's go back to the next row. So now we've created, or the next line, I'm sorry. So now we've created our two-dimensional array. So very quickly, the first row will be the first student's grades. So this is row 0, column 0. This is row 0, column 1, and so on and so forth. The next step then is we want to demonstrate how to display the demonstrate how to display the data by row. So we want to show all of the first student's grades first. So the way we do that is we use nested for loops. The first loop, the outer loop is going to represent the rows. Then the inner loop will represent the columns. So we start at 0, we go through the last column, incrementing by 1. And then inside we're just simply going to display a row and a column and then a tab, so that's a \T to space them out. This inner loop will display one row. When we're ready to display the outer loop, we need to add an indel in order to have a line to go down to the next line to start the next row. So let's compile and run this program, although we're not quite finished. So we can see what I'll call a row-wise display of this two-dimensional array. And it's coming. Take it just a moment to compile. Let me pull this over so you can see it better. 61, 62, 63, 64, 71 through 74, 81 through 84. So that's a fairly standard way to display a two-dimensional array by row. Now let's say we want to display by column. All we have to do is change the order. Let's put the columns in the outer loop, and the row in the inner loop. Whoops, having trouble typing and spelling all of a sudden. And then we do the same access. You have to access row column, can't change that, and we don't really want to. And then a tab, \T, and then again we want a space between each column, so we're going to do it like that. Let's put a couple of spaces in between each one of these. And we're ready to go. There's our rows, and then notice now we're doing it by column. So like if these were by test, then we could say, well, here's test 1 was 61, 71, 81. Test 2 was 62, 72, 82. Test 3 was 63, 73, 83. And test 4 was 64, 74, 84. So that's how you declare, initialize, and access a two-dimensional array. If you want to change a data value, I'll just show you one example. You just directly access it. So you might say 2 equals 99. And that's all you have to do. And with that, we've completed this lesson on working with two-dimensional arrays.